MARTA station right here. What Transwestern is proposing to do is build a 20-story office building. They are buying the property from General Growth, the owner of the mall. They are buying not only this vacant, well, it's not vacant, it's got a surface parking lot on it, this portion of the property, but they're also buying the parking deck on this side of the MARTA station. It is on General Growth property. MARTA has a lease for it, which they have agreed not to continue. There is another parking deck, before you get worried about where you're going to park for MARTA, there is still another parking deck on the other side. So they've identified that both decks are maybe 30% full, so they think they have plenty of capacity. The office building will include a parking deck within it as well. So there'll be about 767 parking spaces in here, and there'll be 600 parking spaces. That's what exists today in the MARTA deck. The access to the site is not going to change at all. There's currently a traffic signal here at the Chick-fil-A. I think they'd be very upset if we got rid of it, so it's staying there. And then there's a second access point here, which leads you around to the back of the MARTA garage and into the mall loop. The office building, using round numbers, is about 456,000 square feet. There are ground floor restaurant and retail uses proposed. They're just under 13,000 square feet. I think Trent's targeting one larger restaurant and then some retail space down at the bottom. We are proposing to meet, I know that Steve Foote was here a few meetings ago when we were here last time talking about the new overlay, and we have designed this building to be consistent with that new overlay. What that means is we have pulled the building up to the street. We are doing the streetscape that's proposed with the bike path. We've accommodated the Hammond Drive road widening and improvements. Just can get me to some of the variances we need. You can see again the building will be all glass. It's actually the same architect as you have with Cooper Carey. Here's another view. Again, this is Hammond Drive, MARTA Station, State Farm over here. What this shows is there is a proposed pedestrian connection, a covered pedestrian connection to get from the office building into the existing MARTA deck. And as you know, there's an existing connection into MARTA. So it'll be very easy for people to take MARTA to come to this building. We are also proposing just this little small variance board. Again, you've got Hammond Drive down at the bottom, the office building is here, the parking deck is here. We're also proposing to have a covered connection to get into the existing mall garage at the rear of the site. The thought being making it easy as possible for people who are working in this office building to come into this deck and then enjoy shopping at Perimeter Mall or have lunch, or basically make everything weather protected. So as I mentioned, we're asking for 20 stories. That's a special land use permit. We're in that process right now. We go to City Council in September. We have also asked for variances, and we'll be before the zoning board the 1st of September. The variances are all setback related. So for those of you who were here that last time I was here, we had a lot of confusing things about parking reductions and lot coverage. We worked through all of that with the help of the city staff and simplified it significantly. We have a request to reduce the 50-foot front yard along here. We're going down, this existing parking deck actually already encroaches into it. When the road improvements are done, it'll be about 26 feet from, we're not doing anything to the deck, but it'll be about 26 feet from the property line. Similarly, this building is going to be about 12 feet from the property line. Now that leaves plenty of room for the required streetscape, but it brings the building up to the street and activates the street. Once the overlay is adopted, we probably won't need this variance, but moving along. We also have setback variances along the perimeter. We're constrained by the fact that there is an existing road here. Our property line is going along that road. The building's going to come up to it. We have a setback variance here to allow us to have that internal connection that we were talking about to build a covered walkway, and also to allow us to draw the property line here between the mall parking deck and this property. And then last, we have a variance along this property line, again, not doing anything to the MARTA deck, but there's an existing encroachment. MARTA deck, I think, predates either the ordinance or wasn't built in conformance with it. So we've got a setback variance over there. So I'll leave it open to questions, which I'm sure you guys have some. Yes?
Yep.
I'm on the development authority, and when you came to us, you said although you're asking for 20, you're actually going to do 16. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're asking for 20 because if we get the right tenant, which is sort of a long shot, but we could go larger, we want to short circuit ourselves. So all of our plans right now are for 16. So I would say that would give us the right to go up to 20.
That's what you explained it to.
And we're not saying we will go up to 20. Our drawings right now are showing actually 354,000
You just want that
gross square feet. That's correct.
If we don't ask for it now, we have to go back through the
I
process.
know.
So that explains the confusion last time, where we had drawings that showed 16, but we were asking for 20, so.
LEED certified building?
Yes,
We like that.
Do we have any tenants yet?
no. We're working on it.
You know them? We'll talk later.
Yes, Shirley.
What you just said is the traffic light is where, yeah. But you showed the entrance and the exit to the parking lots. What's that gonna do to traffic? Have y'all thought through? I know when I go through that area now, it's horrendous.
Sure.
And with as many tenants as you're gonna have in a 20-story building, that's gonna make it that much worse because you're putting in extra parking.
It's difficult to see, and maybe we might want to show the floor plan, but you'll be able to enter the parking deck from the signalized entrance as well as the unsignalized entrance.
Will there be a request or some sort of an arrangement for, I know at Hammond and Ashford Dunwoody, they have police at the main hours, and they turn off those traffic lights because you can't get through. It can take an hour to get past the mall.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly could be something that would be explored if that becomes an issue. I mean, from a practical perspective, if these people are stuck, they're stuck in the deck. I mean, they're stuck waiting. They're not stuck out on the road.
Yes, well,
But
and
the
that's
volume
actually,
of them getting on the
well,
road
that's
is
actually what the
I'm worried
police are there for, is to make sure that they can get out of the parking deck.
That's-
They're not working for you.
about. I know that, but at least it makes it a little bit,
Yeah.
it abates the traffic somewhat.
Yeah.
But I avoid that area
Yeah.
now. I wouldn't go to the mall after 3:30 in the afternoon if you paid me.
I think that's a good idea. And I do the same thing. Stacy and then Joe.
Okay, I just had a quick question. It's actually for Terry and John. Where is the overlay? Because obviously, like you said, they would not need some variances if the overlay were in place.
I was hoping it's coming in the next 3 or 4 months. I mean, it's coming. There's a workshop trying to be scheduled in either September or October to update.
Okay, all right, cool.
When we started this process, it appeared that the process might go in sync with us. And then it appeared that it was gonna be delayed, and so now it's maybe out another 3 or 4 months, so we had to go. But our whole point here was trying to conform to everything.
Because
in the
you would
overlay.
need a slab, right?
Correct.
Okay.
We would still need a SLUP.
For the existing nonconformities.
Well, we would need a SLUP for the building. The overlay has two components. If it's adopted, the overlay has a component that addresses the streetscape and some of the
Right.
requirements that will be imposed. And then it establishes these districts that you can
Right.
rezone into.
Right.
We're consistent with all of that, but we're not proposing to do a separate rezoning process to zone into it. So.
Okay.
That's why she's answering the question.
Got it.
Joe?
Yeah, the way the zoning sort of, it's like, you can't force a zoning on a property owner, but if they want to accept it, then they could roll into it. So
Yeah, we
that's
could, yeah.
You
Wait,
have
wait,
used
Joe.
the term office building. How many stories of this vehicle or this unit are going to be parking? And have you done any study of the demand for parking there as opposed to MARTA and Macy's and everybody? I mean, aren't you over parked?
Well, so we're just meeting the parking requirements, and that includes a 25% reduction because we're next to MARTA. The office building, I think, has 5 levels of
Right.
parking that are, as you can see,
At
it'll look
this
like office
size, yeah.
building, but 5 levels of parking. And we're also replacing 140 spaces that we're displacing from the mall. They're gonna be replaced in the MARTA parking deck. So for the office building and the restaurant and retail uses, we're looking at 1,227 parking spaces.
So, in the past, going back 10, 15 plus years, this area was parking 3.3 cars per 1,000 square feet. And in this era we're in, office buildings are actually more dense with occupants than they've been in the past. So they're getting more people per floor, per square foot. So across I-285, the buildings over there, Premier Summit, are parked at 4 per 1,000. We're parked, because of MARTA, at 3 per 1,000. So we think we're gonna get a big benefit. We don't have to provide as much parking as if we were not at MARTA. And we think it's a big benefit to us and also to the community to be within
That's important to us, by the way.
We did something right.
You get a lot of points for that.
Well, the other thing also that we were going to commit to, General Growth is the managing partner of the mall, and so they own property here. There's been a lot of discussion that's come up at the planning commission meeting about a future park, and that's for General Growth and the city and others to discuss, and I think there's open dialogue about that. But we were asked, since this MARTA parking structure, currently MARTA parking structure includes this little triangle of land up in here, so long as it doesn't impact our access, we're fine. But if the city comes to us and says they'd like to absorb that into the park, we'll agree to that.
Let me also say that acres and acres of surface parking at the mall doesn't do anything for the community, right? Taking out surface parking that nobody uses even on the day after Christmas and putting in productive use is not a bad thing for the community. Bob?
Well, you talk about the parking, but and it's great that it's right next to MARTA, but at the end of the day, you're going to put about 1,000 cars into an area where there's no more infrastructure, roads planned, and then you got High Point right around the corner. Have you done not a parking study, but a traffic study, how it's going to impact an area that, quite frankly, in the afternoon is, if I go by that way, I might as well take a gun and put it to my head because it's just unbelievable.
We have not done a traffic study. We do have
Will
a
you do one?
we do have a traffic engineer that we are working with primarily to look at the internal connections. This project is about 150,000 square feet shy of requiring a traffic study. It goes back to what Seth was saying earlier. If it's not a requirement, it has to be written down somewhere. We're not even close to triggering a traffic study requirement.
We will have about 1,000 cars.
Yeah.
But just to be clear, this is a 600-car parking structure.
That's empty right now, right?
Well, it's a lot empty, that's why Marty's ready to abandon it. But what first we're gonna do is gonna take the parking that's on grade here, the mall parking, we're gonna put it into the deck. So that's how we'll capture that land. And then we'll use the additional spaces. So we're actually building, the new spaces we're providing would be over and above this deck, and we're building in this building here. So it's not really 1,000, but you could say, yes, that deck is pretty much empty today. When the station was built, it was the end of the line, which is why they needed the additional parking back then.
Yeah, we need the West Side Connector to get any relief, right? I mean, it's only going to get worse until the West Side Connector is built. That's the.
One more question.
Yes, Joe.
That parking lot that Bob's talking about, that's across the street from the High operation, right?
High Street.
Well, High Street's going to be on the other side of Martin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're going to be building and
Yeah, this is a tiny project compared to High Street, right? This is a rounding error compared to High Street.
The High Street's all in here.
All right. Any other questions? Bill, last question.
Okay. At the planning commission presentation, you made it clear that to be competitive in the market with the products that are being built in Sandy Springs and Brookhaven, that are allowed to use tax municipal bonds for financing, that you need the same thing to be competitive. Can you talk a little bit about it? I believe your bond payout was 12-year period. 10 years. Can you give us any idea how much the property taxes on that parking lot are now and how much they'll be in 10 years?
Well, I don't know what it is right now because you have to break it out of the overall tax bill that the mall has every year, and they haven't done that, although I do think they're the biggest taxpayer in the city. So we haven't broken it out, but I will say this. If they do break it out, what you're taxing is an on-grade parking lot that's even on its face is inefficient. It's not rectilinear. And a street system that is really curved at angles that's really not that safe. We have studied that and we're going to reconfigure things to make it safer internally. But the reason that what the tax abatement or bonds for title program does is from day one, we'll start paying more tax on that particular property than is paid there today. So we're paying 15% of our overall tax bill from day one, which will exceed, and I'll have to study it, I think guess we could figure it out. And then every year, over the next 10 years, it goes up. So it goes up equally in increments. So at the end of the 10-year period, we're paying 100% of taxes. Henry, what's our tax bill at the end of 10 years on this, do you know?
I just applied a growth rate of 2% onto roughly $4.50 in taxes per square foot today. And you would get to roughly $2 million on a 350,000.
So on a smaller building, this building would end up paying in the vicinity of, that's quick math, but $2 million. Today, it's an on-grade parking lot, and I would say, 15% of $2 million is a lot more than, 300 grand now.
So,
That's the primary reason we've never been able to stop a Class A office building.
right. Well, and let's,
So then the second part of that, I think that's important, is, why do we feel like we need it? And that is that, if you look at the market, and just the Class A buildings like Concourse and Ravinia and, terraces and those kinds of projects that still have a real luster of life to them, even though they're 20-plus years old, those rents are growing. The market's getting tighter, and they're getting up to the point now where new construction, which is a lot more expensive, and if you just run the math on a lease rate, is a lot higher. This bond for title program allows us in the early years to reduce the cost of the project to a tenth. So that closes the gap between what the market is willing to pay at the highest level and where we're coming to with a new product. It's also something that we require, that our investors require, to make sure that we're very competitive in the market. And then lastly, across I-285, the Perimeter Summit project on their new building, which is the only one under construction of any size, they have it, so we have to be competitive with them too. And I think when you weigh it all out, their bonds for title program and ours will be roughly equal to them in the market, lease-wise. If we don't have it, we won't be able to compete, even though we think we have a great site on MARTA and walkable. So that's kind of the logic behind it.
let me ask two related questions. What's the difference in the lease per square feet that you think you would have to charge if you didn't get the abatement, and that you'll be able to charge with the abatement?
$3 to $3.50 a foot,
So,
or in the early years.
so $41 down to 38, is that what we're talking about?
It's roughly $3.90 per square foot that we'd be able to take off the tax payment.
Just like the last time, that's why I bring him.
41 to 37.
So maybe $41 to $37 a square foot, something in that range?
No, it's more than 30, it's 39.
42 to 38.
42 to 38, okay. So that's what the reduction would be. And
I can still argue with him.
what's the total value of Dunwoody city property taxes abated? In other words, if you add up how much you're saving in city tax, property taxes, how much does that add up to over the 10 years? Do you have any
I can't tell you
idea?
off the top of my head. It's a big number.
You have to check the Microsoft.
We're happy to send you an email.
All right, it'd be nice to know.
Yeah.
I think that it's fair to assume.
It's not insignificant.
It's not insignificant, but it's fair to assume that it has a positive economic impact on Dunwoody, right? And on the city's finances, right? That this isn't something that the city would do if it hurt us financially. So there is, and there's occupancy taxes, there's all kinds of other taxes that your tenants will pay once they come in, but it would be interesting to know what the value is of the abatement over the life of the abatement.
We'll have that, we'll calculate that, and have Mike Story look at it, just so we're on the same page.
Okay.
And then we'll be sure to send it to
Okay,
you.
that'd be great.
But it's not insignificant, but from our point of view, that encourages us to invest $130 million on this site to do that project. So it all works together.
Yeah. Okay. Well, guys, thank you very much. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.